Hello ladies and gents. Today I am back with another discussion topic for you guys. This one being, I love my sorority but I hate my chapter. That might be a interesting and yet somewhat controversial thing to say. And I say controversial mainly because how can you love your sorority and hate your chapter? Your chapter is the chapter that you joined. Why would you hate the chapter if you joined the chapter and the chapter is also part of the sorority? What's not to love? Well, let me explain things to you. First of which being, it's not necessarily the fact that you hate your chapter. Some people have really deep love, deep in their soul, love for their chapter. However, you can have those times where you're just like, oh my God, I hate this chapter. Let me explain why. Mainly because it's not necessarily the moment that you join where you start having those feelings about how you feel about your chapter. It's mostly an event that occurs, or an interaction that occurs, or a issue that occurs within the chapter or amongst your members that got you feeling some type of way after you've joined. And it's completely normal. We're human. We have those peaks and valleys where we love something and then we hate something, and then we love it again and then we hate it, and so on and so forth. It's part of life. It's part of growing up. It's part of working with people and communicating with people. But my question now would be, what do you do when you have those feelings? Well, let's see here. So some of the things that I think would be the reason why people end up hating their chapter is they might have hated, I'm not going to use hate because I feel like hate's a strong word sometimes, but they sometimes strongly dislike what occurs in the chapter. And this could be someone that's been in the chapter for a few years or newly inducted into the chapter and they notice a change. Any of those things can happen that will change your feelings toward your chapter, but you still have mad love for your sorority. And I think sometimes when that happens is you just notice a change in people, or you notice a change in the structure. I think leadership has something to do with people feeling some type of way about their chapter, or the way things are done in terms of working behind the scenes and actual functioning within the chapter. Sometimes some chapters, once their leaders are gone, like the really strong people have graduated, the people who don't know very much end up falling apart, and it makes the chapter fall apart. And then you have some people that always do what they're supposed to do. They always work hard. They always work for the chapter, work for their sorority, work for their organization in general if you're a guy, and you feel like it doesn't amount to much because you're putting in so many hours of work and the other people in the chapter aren't. So I think that's part of the reason why people end up hating being in the chapter after they've crossed, because things change and people don't really work on fixing those issues before they become big issues. So how do we fix that? I think that it's great to have a come to Jesus moment. I've had several come to Jesus moments when I was in undergrad, and I've had several coming to Jesus moments in graduate chapter, and I've had several coming to Jesus moments with my undergrads as an advisor. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you have to have those moments where you come together and you figure out what the problem is, because you don't want the issue to fester. You don't want it to manifest, and you don't want it to become an even bigger issue that you can't solve because it's gotten so huge and so out of control that you don't know how to go back to the foundation of the issue and fix it. So it's good to catch these issues in the beginning and try to resolve them before it becomes a snowball and you can't fix it because you don't even know where to begin. So I highly recommend coming to Jesus moments just to get to the root of the problem. Maybe it's something related to an issue that occurred between you and your chapter members that just wasn't resolved, which developed those feelings of you hating the chapter because it wasn't resolved. And I think something else that occurs with that is that when two people are disagreeing with each other, the outside people will either take sides or they'll choose not to take sides, and that becomes an issue, because if people take sides, you feel like you're pairing one person against the other, and then the groups are opposing each other, or you feel like no one's taking your side and no one really acknowledges your feelings. So I think that becomes an issue. Some other issues that need to be addressed when you have those coming together moments would be functioning issues. Sometimes things just don't function well. Maybe you had an event that you had to plan and it was a big event. Maybe it was a pageant or a fundraiser, and it just fell apart in the end, and you ended up hating or feeling like you hate the chapter because of that event. Well, I think you'd have to come together to figure out what those issues were related to the functioning of the chapter. Like, what went wrong when you guys were planning that event to it fell apart in the end. So sometimes you have to go back and retrace your steps to see how the issue even became an issue in the beginning. Case in point, say the pageant ended up being a reason why you ended up hating your chapter. You had a horrible pageant and you just thought it was just a horrible event. Well, why was it a horrible event? Did you guys not plan it properly? Did you guys not have the proper support that you thought that you needed? Was there something wrong behind the scenes? Did the graduate chapter not support you? Things like that. So sometimes you have to come together and figure out what the issues are in order to know really why you feel the way that you feel. So how do you move forward once you figure out what those reasons are? If you don't talk it out, I don't think you're ever going to get past it. Sometimes people just don't want to cause conflict, so they'll keep the issue to themselves, and it ends up festering in their heart and their soul, and it just makes them feel horrible inside, and it manifests itself into like strong negativity towards that person or towards the chapter. And you don't want that, because at the end of the day, the reason why you joined that organization was because you had severe love for it in the beginning, and you wanted to make a difference, and you wanted to impact the community or impact the world through that organization. So if you end up hating it in the end, or end up hating the chapter at the end, how are you going to be able to help the sorority as a whole? So you have to address those issues. And then once you've addressed those issues, just move on from it. Sometimes it's not even worth it. Well, I won't even say sometimes. In general, throughout life, it's not worth it to hold a grudge against something, because at the end of the day, you're only hurting yourself. You being mad at your chapter is not going to help the chapter move forward. And then sometimes you'll end up being left behind because you're the only one mad and everyone else is trying to move forward. So sometimes you have to evaluate yourself to make sure that you're not the one causing the problems as well. Yeah, you hate your chapter, but what did the chapter really do to you for you to feel the way that you're feeling? And then how can you resolve it? And if you can't get past it, maybe you need to take a step back and come back at another point in time when you think that you're ready to move past it and actually make an impact in your chapter and make an impact in the sorority in the end. So that's basically my advice that I have for someone that hates their chapter. It's a touchy subject in a sense that people don't really want to talk about what goes on inside their chapter, but if it's an issue that's internal, that's manifested in something external that everybody can see, it needs to be resolved. So those are just my points on how to move past that issue. If anyone else has had previous experiences, please feel free to put them in the comments below. I kept it pretty general because I didn't want to like really dig into serious issues that occurs in some chapters, because I've seen a few, but I just want to give like a general kind of discussion on it. But if anybody has any comments about that, please put it in the comments below. If you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next sorority discussion. Bye.